They said they'd grab coffee. That was 6 hours ago. It's midnight now. The buzzing lights above the gas station flickered every few seconds, throwing brief shadows across the empty parking lot. I sat on the low concrete curb near pump number 4, my handbag tucked under one arm, the other hand clutching the hem of my cardigan like it might stop the wind from noticing me. My phone had died around 9:30. No charger, no messages. Just silence. The cashier inside had locked the doors an hour ago, giving me an apologetic look before pulling down the blinds. "We close at 11, ma'am," he'd said, though I'd bought a bottle of water and pretzels earlier, as if that made me less of a loiterer. I didn't argue. I just nodded and stepped back outside. They said, "Wait here, Ma. We'll just grab coffee from that shop on the corner." Evan had smiled when he said it, that tight-lipped kind of smile people use when they want to be believed more than they want to tell the truth. Lena didn't even look at me. She was already scrolling on her phone. "Won't take 5 minutes," he said. That was at 6:03. At 7, I told myself maybe the line was long. At 8, I decided they must have run into someone they knew. By 9, I was watching the cars that pulled into the lot too closely, hoping to see my own. And now, it's 12:01. July air, heavy with heat and shame. I'd been wearing the same blue canvas shoes all day. Comfortable for errands, I thought. We were supposed to go into town, Evan had said. Maybe swing by Target, grab you some new reading glasses, remember? Of course I remembered. I had my prescription in my purse, folded neatly next to a note I'd written with all the things I hoped to buy if we passed a pharmacy. Ointment for my knees, some of that lavender soap I liked. Silly things. Small. My car, well, my name on the papers, my insurance, was nowhere in sight. A silver 2009 Buick Encore with a dent on the back fender from when Evan scraped the mailbox 2 years ago. They'd been using it full-time since their own car went out of commission. "Just until we get the Honda fixed," they'd said. That was last fall. At 12:16, a police cruiser pulled in slowly. I stood up without thinking. I must have looked strange. White hair pulled into a tired knot, blouse creased from leaning too long against a gas station wall. The officer stepped out. Young, polite, a little cautious. "Ma'am, are you all right?" "No," I said. "I've been left here since 6. He glanced at the building behind me. "The station's closed, ma'am." "I know." I looked him straight in the eye. "My family drove off in my car and haven't come back. I'd like to report it stolen." He blinked. "You're saying someone stole your vehicle?" "Yes." "Who?" "My son and his wife." There was a pause. A thin strip of disbelief passed across his face, but to his credit, he didn't let it linger. "Okay," he said, nodding slowly. "Let's sit in the car. Get your statement." Inside the cruiser, the air conditioning was too cold. He handed me a clipboard. I wrote down everything: names, dates, license plate. When I handed it back, he glanced at the top sheet. "You're the registered owner?" "Yes." He was quiet for a few beats. "Are you sure you want to do this, ma'am? Sometimes people just get sidetracked." 6 hours isn't sidetracked, I said evenly. "It's a decision." Another pause. Then he took out his phone and called it in. I leaned back in the seat. The hum of the dashboard lights buzzed low. In the distance, a truck rattled by. I didn't cry. Not then. Not even when the dispatcher confirmed the VN matched the Buick registered to me. Not even when he said, "We'll file it as a non-violent vehicle theft, pending investigation." I just watched the road. Let them come back now, I thought. Let them pull into this lot and see me here, giving a statement to the law. Let them explain what kind of coffee takes 6 hours and ends with your mother sleeping on concrete. But they didn't come back. And I didn't wait anymore. They asked me twice if I was sure I wanted to press charges. The first time was back at the gas station, while the officer filled in boxes on his form. The second time, at the station, under harsher lights, where the air smelled like tired coffee and printer toner. I sat on a plastic chair that creaked under every small shift in weight. My palms rested on my knees, steady. "Yes," I said again. "Okay, Mrs. Harper." Officer Lang, that was his name, looked up from the keyboard. "We're processing it as suspected vehicle theft. Since the car's registered to you and you didn't authorize its removal, that meets the criteria." His tone was careful, respectful, but measured. The kind reserved for elderly women who might change their minds or suddenly say, "Never mind, it's just a misunderstanding." I wasn't going to. He offered me a blanket, and I said no. He offered me coffee, and I said yes. It came in a paper cup, burnt and bitter, but it steadied my hands. The station was quiet. A radio murmured somewhere behind a glass wall. One officer passed by holding a bag of fast food. I caught a glimpse of the clock. 1:12 a.m. Evan once told me, "People do the worst things when they think you won't say anything." He was 17 and angry when he said it, about a teacher who'd taken credit for a group project. I remember how proud I felt when he stood up to her. How I'd told him afterward, "Don't ever lose that spine, sweetheart." Somewhere between 17 and 38, he'd misplaced it. Or maybe I had. Maybe I was the one who let things slide too many times. The first time Lena rolled her eyes when I spoke. The second time Evan forgot my birthday, but remembered to borrow $200. The time they moved into my guest room and never really moved out. Or when the mail started coming in his name. When my groceries stopped being mine. When my car keys ended up in Lena's purse. "Do you have any family who can pick you up?" Officer Lang asked gently. I looked at him for a long time before answering. "No," I said. There were people, sure. A sister in Montana I hadn't spoken to in 4 years. A neighbor who once brought me soup when I had the flu. But no one I could call at 1:30 in the morning without apologizing 10 times. "That's fine," he said. "We can give you a ride home." Home. I almost laughed, but I nodded. "Thank you." The drive back to Desert Hollow Park took 20 minutes. I sat in the back of the cruiser, silent, watching the familiar stretch of Route 17 pass by in reverse. Cacti, billboards, the old pawn shop with the flickering neon ring. It was strange how the road looked different now, not dangerous, just unfamiliar. Like something I used to know by heart, but now had to squint to recognize. Officer Lang parked by the side of the trailer. "Would you like me to check inside first?" he offered. "No," I said. "It's just dusty." And it was. Dusty and quiet and unchanged. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled like mothballs and dry curtains. I hadn't been here in over 2 weeks. They'd insisted it was better if I stayed with them. "Closer to town, Ma," Evan had said. "And the AC works better." What he meant was, Lena doesn't like driving out here. It's too empty, too quiet, too close to where you came from. I used to love this place. Still did, in some deep part of me. My trailer, narrow but neat, with a little porch and a swing that creaked when the wind got strong. Photos on the fridge. Evan as a toddler in cowboy boots. Me and Robert on our wedding day. The diner we ran before he passed. Robert would have known what to say. He would have been furious. Or calm in that dangerous way he had. Quiet, but sharp. He used to say, being good to people doesn't mean letting them steal from you. I sat on the couch and kicked off my shoes. The silence wasn't oppressive. It was clarifying. I got up and opened the old tin box on the shelf, the one where I kept all my documents, deed to the car, my will. The power of attorney I'd signed 2 years ago when Lena said it would help with taxes. I started reading. By 3 a.m., I knew 3 things. The car was legally mine. No shared title, no lanes, no excuses. The power of attorney was revocable. I just had to go to the bank and request it. I had let myself believe that kindness would buy me loyalty. It didn't. I called the bank. Left a voicemail on the emergency line. "This is Jean Harper. I need to revoke a power of attorney first thing tomorrow. Please confirm." I left my number. My voice didn't shake. Then I turned off the lights, crawled into bed with my jeans still on, and stared at the ceiling. Outside, the desert wind picked up, rustling the dry brush around the trailer. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote cried out. I closed my eyes and waited for morning. By sunrise, I'd already cleaned the kitchen, scrubbed the bathroom sink, and reorganized my medicine drawer. Nerves do that to you. Turn time into movement. At 6:42, the bank called back. "Mrs. Harper, this is Jessica from Desert First Credit Union. I received your message regarding revocation of power of attorney. Are you available to come in today?" "I'm on my way," I said. I dressed in my old beige slacks and a crisp button-down blouse I hadn't worn in years. Not since Robert's funeral, maybe. I added a brooch he'd given me, a small silver bird with a blue stone for an eye. I don't know why. It just felt like the right thing to wear when you're going to take your name back. The bank sat on the corner of Copper and Main, one of those buildings trying too hard to be modern. All glass panels and sterile lighting. I walked in at 8:02, right after they unlocked the doors. Jessica was young, maybe 30, with a sharp ponytail and long nails that clicked gently against the desk as she typed. "Let's go over everything," she said, offering a patient smile. "You had previously signed over financial access to your son, Evan Harper, correct?" "Yes," I replied, "but I'd like to cancel that. Today." "Of course," she said. "I'll just need you to sign here and here." Her printer hummed. I signed my name with a pen that felt heavier than it should have. "And now," I said when she was done, "I'd like to remove him as a joint user from my accounts. I want full control reinstated." Jessica hesitated, just for a second. "Are you sure, Mrs. Harper?" I looked her dead in the eye. "I'm sure." She typed a little longer. Then she slid a stack of papers toward me. "These will finalize it. Once they're signed, he won't be able to access your accounts, request transfers, or authorize payments." I signed every page. By the time I left the bank, the sun was high. The pavement shimmered like foil. I walked across the street to the diner. Not our old one, that closed years ago. This one was newer, louder, full of chrome and people too busy to look at you twice. I took a booth by the window, ordered black coffee and oatmeal. When it arrived, I pulled out my notebook and wrote 4 words at the top of a fresh page. It was never kindness. Then I wrote everything I could remember. Every time I said yes when I should have said no. The day I co-signed their lease. The week I let them move back in, just for a little while. The moment I told myself, it's just easier this way. When I was done, my oatmeal was cold. I didn't care. Back home, I checked the mailbox. A flyer for a real estate agent, a political postcard, a letter from Social Security, and a padded envelope. No return address. Inside was my spare car key. No note, no apology, just the key So they'd figured it out. I stared at it for a long moment before setting it on the counter. Then the phone rang. "Mom?" Evan's voice. Brittle, defensive, trying too hard to sound casual. "We were just about to call you. We had a situation yesterday." "You left me on the side of the road," I said flatly. "It wasn't like that," he replied. "Lena's mom had an emergency. We had to drive out." "You could have come back. You didn't." He went quiet. "I reported the car stolen," I continued. "The police have your names. They know you took it." "Jesus, Mom." Now his tone cracked. "Do you have any idea what kind of trouble this could cause me at work?" "Oh," I said. "So now we're worried." "Come on," he said, trying to pivot. "We were just confused. It was a miscommunication." "No, Evan. It was a decision." Silence again. Then, "Are you really cutting me off from the accounts?" "Yes." "And the house? The trust?" "I haven't touched the trust yet." I heard the breath hitch, the calculations running, the fear. "You're angry," he said finally, "but you don't have to blow up everything." "I'm not angry," I said calmly. "I'm awake." Then I hung up. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was clean, like a room that's finally been aired out after too many years. I stood at the kitchen sink and looked out the window. The backyard was mostly dust and stubborn weeds, but I saw a small bloom near the edge of the fence, something purple and defiant, rising out of nothing. I made a list. Call lawyer. Find new insurance company. Make appointment to get the Buick back. Look at used RV listings. The last one was written slow, deliberate, because if they didn't want me in their world, that was fine. I had roads, I had maps, I had time, and I had a full tank of gas. The lawyer's office hadn't changed in 20 years. Same cracked leather chairs, same dusty diploma on the wall, same faint smell of old carpet and lemon oil. But Harold Ellis looked older, thinner, less sure of his handshake. "Jean," he said, rising behind his desk, "you look, well." "I look like a woman who finally ran out of patience," I replied. He smiled, the kind that says he's heard worse in this room. I handed him the folder I'd brought. Inside, the power of attorney paperwork, the will he'd drafted for me 6 years ago, and a printout of my bank's confirmation that Evan had been removed from my accounts. He skimmed the top page. "You're revoking everything?" "Yes. I want a new will. I want Evan and Lena out of it, completely." Harold leaned back in his chair. "Any particular reason?" "They left me at a gas station," I said. "Took my car and vanished. I waited until midnight, reported it stolen." He didn't write that down. He didn't need to. "I'd like to assign everything to my granddaughter, not their daughter. She's Lena's child from before. I mean my other one. Sarah, my daughter Emily's girl." "Sarah? Harper Bowen?" "Yes. She's 19, in community college. Works part-time at the library. She sent me a Christmas card last year. Nobody else did." Harold nodded, tapping his pen. "We'll set up a living trust in her name. You can define the terms. When she gets access, how it's used, full legal structure." "I want it airtight," I said. "I want Evan nowhere near it. No appeals, no revisits, no loopholes." "I can do that," he said. "But Jean, they're your family." "No, Harold," I said, soft but firm. "They were, until they made a different choice." He didn't argue. We spent 2 hours going over documents, changing beneficiary lines, setting up contingencies. I declined his offer of coffee. I'd brought my own in a thermos, like I used to when Robert and I came in to update our paperwork after the diner sold. Funny how easy it is to change your entire legacy with a signature. You just press a pen into paper and say, "This is mine, not yours." When we were done, Harold stood to walk me out. "I'm sorry it came to this," he said quietly. "So am I," replied, "but I'm not sorry I'm doing it." Outside, the sky was blinding with sun. I slipped on my sunglasses, big ones, round, a little silly. Robert used to call them my movie star shades. I liked how they made everything look less sharp, less personal. Back at the trailer, I checked the mailbox again. Another padded envelope. Inside, the spare garage door remote, 2 house keys on a ring I'd forgotten even existed, and a sticky note that read, "We're sorry. We panicked." No signature, no return address. Just that. We panicked. I sat down at the table and laughed hard. The kind that starts in your chest and rises up until it feels like it might carry you away if you let it. They didn't panic when they drove away. They didn't panic when they ignored my calls. They panicked when the bank called to confirm changes. They panicked when they realized I wasn't bluffing. At 3:17, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Lena standing there. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just less sure of herself. Her hair was perfectly styled as always. Her makeup was flawless. But her eyes darted. "I know I shouldn't just show up," she said quickly, "but Evan's spiraling. He didn't sleep. He says you won't take his calls." "I won't," I said. She swallowed. "I think there was a misunderstanding." "No," I replied. "There wasn't." She blinked. "Jean, it wasn't planned. We didn't mean to leave you. You just made a choice. And now you're realizing it came with consequences." Her hands twisted in front of her. "You don't have to cut us off. That car, we didn't think." "You didn't think," I interrupted. "Exactly." "I know I've never been your favorite," she said, voice tight. "This isn't about favorites," I said. "This is about decency." Silence stretched between us. Then she said it. The line I'd waited for, dreaded, expected. "You're still Evan's mother. You'll forgive him." I met her gaze. "That used to be true?" And then I closed the door. She didn't knock again. Inside, I stood still for a long time, staring at the wood grain of the door. My breath slow. My pulse steady. The quiet wasn't lonely. It was mine. I didn't cry after I closed the door on Lena. That surprised me. For years I'd cried quietly, behind bathroom doors, into dishwater, under old quilts. I cried when Robert died, of course. But I also cried when Evan forgot my birthday, when Lena rolled her eyes across the dinner table, when I sat alone on Christmas Eve and told myself, "They're just busy. That's all." But this time, I made a cup of tea and sat in silence. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel bitter. I felt like the ground beneath me had finally stopped shaking. There was grief in that too, but the kind that makes space for clarity. The next morning, I called Desert Hollow RV Sales. "Do you sell used models?" I asked. "Plenty," said the cheerful woman on the line. "What's your budget?" "Enough," I said. "I'm not looking for luxury, just something that runs, doesn't smell like mildew, and won't fall apart in the rain." She laughed. "We've got 3 that might fit the bill." I made an appointment for noon. Then I started packing. I didn't need much. Just a few clothes, the photo album with the cracked leather spine, Robert's old coffee mug, my thermos, a paperback I never finished, and the small green box where I kept my keepsakes. The locket from my grandmother, a ribbon from Emily's first dance recital, a tiny stone Evan once gave me when he was 6, declaring it magic. It wasn't about running away. It was about walking out the door without having to leave part of myself behind. I took my time at the RV lot. The salesman, a man named Troy with sunburned cheeks and dirt under his fingernails, showed me 3 options. The first smelled like mildew. The second had a dent the size of a watermelon in the rear panel. The third was small, steady, and beige. Forgettable from the outside, but surprisingly clean within. "This one's older," Troy said, "but she's got a good engine. Single owner. Took her across the country twice," he said. I ran my hand along the counter inside. It was laminate, not fancy, but solid. "I'll take it," I said. Troy blinked. "You want to think about it? Sleep on it?" "I've done nothing but sleep on things," I replied. "How much to hold it today?" He named the price. I paid it on the spot. Back at the trailer, I started making lists. Insurance transfer. Storage arrangements for what I'd leave behind. DMV appointment. Mail forwarding. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. At 6:45, my phone rang. Sarah. I hadn't heard her voice in over a year. Not since a brief birthday call, polite and awkward, cut short by a professor walking in early. "Hi, Grandma," she said. I heard something happened." I sat down slowly. "Who told you?" "Mom," she said. "Well, not directly. I overheard her talking to Uncle Evan. She sounded scared. Said you were cutting people out of your will, that you'd..." "Snapped." "Snapped," I echoed. Sarah hesitated. "I didn't believe her. That's not you." I was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you remember the Christmas card you sent me?" "Of course. It had the little fox with the scarf." "You were the only one who remembered." "I always remember you," she said. Then, gently, "Are you okay?" I looked around the kitchen, at the packed boxes, at the worn edge of the curtain where the sun always hit. "I am," I said. "I really am. I don't want to take sides," she added quickly. "But I just wanted you to know I'm here. If you need anything." I smiled. "Thank you, sweetheart." After we hung up, I opened the old green box. Took out the stone Evan had given me, the one he'd called magic. I turned it over in my hand. It wasn't magic. It was just a stone. But it was mine. The thing about starting over at 74 is that no one really expects you to mean it. At the DMV, the clerk squinted at me like I was senile when I said I was transferring title and registration to a motorhome I hadn't even driven yet. "Planning a trip?" she asked, tapping keys with acrylic nails the color of watermelon gum. "Something like that," I said. She looked up. "You sure you want it in your name only?" "Yes." "Anyone else going to be driving it?" "No." She waited, expecting more. Maybe a man's name, a son, a nephew, a reason. I didn't give her one. The next stop was the insurance office. I'd had the same agent for 30 years, Ben Ramirez, a man with a slow walk and a faster mind. When I walked in, he smiled like I was still the same Jean who used to bring him pie in late September. "Long time, Jean. What can I do for you?" "I need to insure a 2006 Coachman Freelander." His eyebrows lifted. "That's a motorhome?" "Yes." "Where you headed?" "Anywhere." He didn't press, just nodded and pulled up a new policy. While he typed, I studied the walls. Photos of other clients, people I'd known for decades, holding keys, smiling in front of new homes. My picture wasn't up there. I never asked why. Maybe I hadn't done anything worth framing. By the time I left, the Freelander had plates, insurance, and a name I hadn't told anyone yet. I'd written it on a Post-it and stuck it inside the glove box. Lark. Short. Unassuming. A creature that flies when no one's watching. That night, I stood in my old bedroom for a long time. It was cleaner than it had been in years. Nothing on the floor. The bedspread tucked tight. The air smelled like the lemon oil I'd used on the dresser. I pulled open the bottom drawer. At the very back, wrapped in flannel, was the sealed letter I'd written a year after Robert died. I'd forgotten all about it. I opened it. "If you're reading this, Jean," it began, "you're probably wondering what's next. You're stronger than you think. You've survived worse. The people who forget you now never really saw you. Do not be small. Do not settle." His handwriting, strong, looping, like his voice if I listened close enough. I refolded the letter, tucked it into my purse. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and wrote one of my own. "Evan, by the time you read this, I will be gone. Not in the dramatic sense. Just gone. On the road. In my name, in my vehicle, with my own hands on the wheel. I've spent years giving. My time, my money, my silence. I thought that was love. But love doesn't mean disappearing to make other people more comfortable. I let you treat me like a service, not a person. That ends now. There's no anger left in me. Only space. You won't know where I'm going. That's by design. If you ever decide to be a son again, not just a user, maybe you'll find me. Maybe not. Take care of yourself. Or don't. I'm no longer responsible for the parts of you I didn't break. Mom." I signed it in ink that didn't smudge. Left it on the kitchen counter. The next morning, just before sunrise, I slid behind the wheel of Lark. The seat was high. The air smelled like vinyl and possibility. I started the engine. It coughed once, then roared. I didn't look back. The road out of Desert Hollow was long and flat, the kind of nothingness that looks like freedom when you've got nowhere to be. I drove with the window cracked open. Dry air poured in, hot and gritty, but it beat the silence. The radio worked, barely. I caught pieces of an old country song, then static, then a preacher's voice talking about sin and salvation like they were sold at the same price. By noon, I'd passed through 3 towns, none of which I stopped in. I wasn't running from anything, not exactly, but I didn't want to answer questions from a diner waitress with too much eyeliner asking, "Traveling alone, hun?" Yes, I was. I pulled into a campground by a dry riverbed. A sign said, "First night free." After that, you better be interesting. I liked that. Parked beneath a crooked mesquite tree and killed the engine. The air buzzed with heat and insects. I stepped out, stretched my legs, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something settle in me. Not peace, not quite. Just room. I sat under the tree and made a sandwich with what I had. Peanut butter, saltines, the last of the hotel jam packets I'd stuffed into my bag last month. I didn't mind. I ate it slowly, watching ants discover the crumbs. That night, I met Doris. She parked 2 spots over in a sleek little trailer with solar panels and potted succulents in the window. 60-ish, wiry frame, silver braid down her back like a horse's tail. She waved with a cigarette between her fingers. "You just passing through?" she asked. "Something like that." "I'm Doris." "Jean? Hell of a name. You look like a Jean. Tough. Got stories?" I smiled. "Maybe." She came over later with 2 plastic cups and a bottle of something brown. We sat on lawn chairs under a sky that refused to end. "I left Bakersfield last year," she said. "Kids wanted to put me in a safe place. Told me I shouldn't be alone anymore. You know what that means." "I do." "I told them I'd rather die drunk in a ditch than be babysat like a broken dog." I laughed, loud and real. She studied me. "You run away from something, Jean?" "No," I said. "I just finally ran toward something." "Which is?" "Myself." She clinked her cup to mine. "Damn right." We sat in silence for a while, watching the desert go from orange to dark. Coyotes howled somewhere far off, But I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Before bed, I wrote in my notebook, Day 1. Nobody told me the first taste of freedom is so quiet. I slept with the windows open. No dreams. Just the hum of space and breath and stars too big for anyone's permission. By the third morning on the road, I stopped counting towns. They all blurred into the same faded gas stations, chipped motel signs, diners that smelled like fryer grease, and sun-beaten vinyl booths. I didn't mind. Every place offered something I hadn't felt in years. Anonymity. I found a laundromat in a town called Mercer's Bluff. One of those storefronts with flickering lights and a bulletin board full of handwritten ads. Free kittens, help wanted, cash only, guitar lessons from a man named Clay. I did 2 loads of clothes, folded them slow, took comfort in the rhythm. I used to own a place like this. Before I sold it. Before I became the woman my son stopped seeing. In the parking lot, a young man approached me. Early 20s, maybe. Baseball cap, dusty boots, a face too sunburned to be threatening. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said. "You dropped this." He held out a receipt. Mine, from the machine inside. A silly thing. Still, I thanked him. "You driving that RV?" he asked, glancing toward Lark. "I am." "Alone?" "Yes." He nodded, slow. Cool. Not pitying, not condescending, just surprised. That felt new. I filled my gas tank, bought a Gatorade, and drove out toward a rest area with shade trees and picnic benches. Lark rattled a bit on the incline, but she held. She always held. As I sat under the tree, feet up, Gatorade sweating in my hand, my phone buzzed. It was a text. From Evan. "Mom, please, can we talk? Just talk. I don't know what to do anymore." "I didn't think you'd actually leave." I stared at it. For a second, I felt the tug. The old pull of obligation, of fixing things. That voice that says, "Be the bigger person. Make peace. He's still your boy." But then I remembered the gas station. The heat. The darkness. The sound of nothing. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notebook and wrote, "If you want someone to come home to, you don't leave them in the dirt." Later that evening, I drove into a town that didn't seem to have a name, just a road sign that said, "Population, small enough to notice a stranger." I pulled into a grocery store lot and went inside for milk and bread. At the checkout, the clerk, an older woman with tired eyes and a soft voice, smiled as she scanned my items. "You passing through?" "Always," I said. She nodded like she understood. "You take care now." Back in Lark, I found a small envelope slipped through the driver's side window. No address, just my name, not Mom, not Mrs. Harper, just Jean, written in crooked pencil. Inside, a folded piece of paper. "Saw you pull in. Reminded me of my grandma. She had guts, too. Don't let anyone call you alone like it's a weakness. Sometimes it's the only way we hear ourselves again." K. No number. No name. Just that. I sat with it in my lap for a long time, the engine off, the sun folding into orange behind a distant hill. It wasn't the message that moved me exactly. It was the timing. The way it arrived just when I was starting to forget who I'd been before all the giving. That night, I didn't park at a campsite. I stopped by the side of the road under a sky full of moon and stars. Cooked scrambled eggs on my little stove, drank cold water straight from the jug. Then I sat down at the tiny table, opened my journal, and wrote. Day 3. Being alone is not punishment. It's permission. Somewhere outside Barrow's Mill, the road began to curve. Gentle, like a hand guiding you forward without force. I followed it without checking the map. That's what I liked most about driving now. not knowing exactly where I was headed, but knowing I didn't have to ask anyone's permission to get there. Around midday, I saw the sign, Local Market Today. Vendors, music, community. I pulled Lark into a gravel lot beside a weathered barn and got out. The air smelled like grilled corn and kettle popcorn. Kids ran barefoot across dry grass. An old man played guitar under a pop-up canopy, singing a tune I didn't know but recognized anyway. Something slow about time and rust and forgiveness. I wandered through rows of tables, handmade soaps, tie-dye scarves, jars of pickles with handwritten labels. A woman in a wide straw hat waved me over. "Need some lavender oil, sweetheart?" she asked. I almost said no out of habit, but stopped myself. "I think I do," I said. I bought a small bottle, pressed the cool glass to my wrist, and breathed deep. For the first time in what felt like years, I liked how I smelled. Like something clean, something mine. I sat under a tree at the edge of the market, sipping iced tea from a paper cup. Watched the world move without needing me to manage it. That's when I saw the girl. She was maybe 10, standing near a booth, watching me openly, not shy, just curious. After a moment, she walked over. "Is that your RV?" she asked, pointing to Lark. "It is. You live in it?" "I do." "That's so cool." I smiled. "Most people don't think so." She shrugged. "Most people are boring." Her name was May. Her grandmother ran the pie stand, and she was helping out for the summer. We talked about her favorite books, the dog she wanted, the pie she hated baking, peach, and the one she loved, blackberry. "Where are you going next?" she asked. "I don't know yet." That sounds like magic. It did. I hadn't realized until she said it. When the sun started to sink, I bought a slice of blackberry pie and headed back to Lark. May waved from the booth. Her grandmother nodded at me, the kind of nod that says, "I see you. I see what you're doing, and I get it." That night, I parked Lark near a river. No official campsite, just a wide dirt shoulder and the hush of water moving slow. I ate my pie with a plastic fork, standing barefoot in the cool dust. The stars above me were so bright they made my chest ache. I didn't miss my old life. I missed what I used to imagine it could be. After dinner, I sat inside and pulled out a postcard. I'd picked it up at the market, hand-drawn with a sketch of a mountain I hadn't climbed yet. I wrote, "Sarah, I don't know where I am exactly, but it's quiet here. And the pie's good. I hope school is treating you well. You always did like a challenge. I'm proud of you. Not for anything you've done, just for who you are. Write if you feel like it, or don't. I'll be okay either way. Grandma." No preaching. No guilt, just truth. I sealed the card. Tomorrow, I'd find a mailbox. Then I wrote in my journal, Day 4. The world doesn't owe me anything, but I don't owe it my silence either. I mailed the postcard the next morning from a post office so small it didn't have a real doorbell, just a cowbell hanging from a string. A woman behind the counter took the card without a word, slid it into a bin, and smiled. It felt like ceremony, like release. Back on the road, I didn't drive far. I stopped at a quiet patch of land with no signs, no fences, just a wide sky and a single cottonwood tree. I parked Lark in its shadow and stepped out. The silence here wasn't empty. It was layered. Birds, breeze, my own breath. I thought of Sarah, of what she'd said on the phone. I don't want to take sides. She didn't have to. She'd called. That was enough. By late afternoon, the sky began to shift. A storm, high and fast, swept over the horizon like something remembered. I stayed inside Lark, watching the rain streak the windows. It didn't scare me. I liked hearing something stronger than my thoughts. I made soup, wrote in my notebook, read the last few pages of the novel I'd brought. Then, as the storm faded, my phone buzzed. Another message. This time, from Sarah. "Hi, Grandma. I got your postcard. Thank you." I read it twice. Maybe more? I'm not sure what to say, except I think I miss you. Can I see you sometime? You don't have to answer right away. Just think about it. I'll wait. I reread it 3 times, each time slower. There was no pressure in her words, no guilt, just hope, sitting quietly in a sentence. I didn't write back that night. I didn't want to rush. Instead, I made tea. Opened the green box again, the one with all my little keepsakes. Inside, beneath the locket and ribbon, was a photograph I hadn't seen in years. Robert and me. Laughing. It wasn't posed. Someone must have caught it off guard. His arm was slung around my shoulders, my head thrown back, his eyes soft. We looked like people who belonged nowhere but beside each other. I laid it flat on the table. Beside it, I placed a new photo, one I'd taken that afternoon. Me, barefoot, outside Lark, holding a cup of tea, the cottonwood tree behind me like a witness. Side by side, they told the truth. I hadn't stopped being me. I'd just stopped being seen. Before bed, I wrote in my notebook. Day 5. Some people wait to be chosen. Some remember they already were. I fell asleep to the sound of crickets and the low, faithful hum of my tiny refrigerator. In the morning, I'd decide where to go next. But for now, I was still. And still was enough. The road stretched out like a ribbon someone had let go of. Loose, wavering, untied. I drove slow, letting the air drift in through the cracked window. My hands rested light on the wheel. I wasn't rushing anymore. I wasn't chasing a destination. Just moving. It was mid-morning when I passed a faded sign. Winslow, 12 miles. The name struck a chord. Not from memory, but from that old song Robert used to hum when washing the car. I pulled into town just before noon. Winslow wasn't much. A main street with 3 traffic lights, a post office, a barber shop, a corner diner with "World's Best Pie" painted in chipped red letters across the window. I parked Lark and stepped inside. The place was cool, dim, and smelled of sugar and something frying. A bell above the door jingled. A waitress in her 60s gave me a once-over and nodded. Sit anywhere. I chose a booth by the window. She brought water and a menu that didn't need reading. I ordered black coffee and whatever pie she had left. "You're not from around here," she said, scribbling in her pad. "No," I said. "Just passing through." She smiled. "That's what they all say. Then winter comes and they're still here, wondering what happened." I smiled back. Not this time. The pie was pecan. The crust was heavy, not quite flaking, but honest. I ate it slowly, thought about Sarah's message again. Her quiet words, that careful pause before "can I see you sometime?" Outside the window, a boy no older than 12 rode a bike in lazy loops, dragging one foot like a rudder. He wore a red t-shirt 2 sizes too big and a grin that reminded me of Evan when he was young, before the weight settled in his shoulders, before he stopped riding bikes. I finished the pie, left cash and a generous tip. Back in Lark, I pulled out a folded map. Not a GPS, not an app, a real paper map, creased and worn, the kind that unfolds your memory right along with the road. I circled 3 towns I'd heard about from strangers along the way. Places with rivers, with music, with the kind of quiet that doesn't swallow you. Then I drew a 4th circle, not far. A detour. A town near Sarah's college. I didn't plan to stop. just to pass through, see the campus, know the geography of where her voice lived. The drive took most of the afternoon. I kept the radio low, blues and static, old voices crackling in and out. It suited me. When I reached the outskirts, I parked by a wide public park and walked. The grass was green and patchy. Students sprawled on benches and picnic blankets, their laughter easy, forgettable. It didn't sting. It soothed. I found a bench, sat, watched the sun tilt toward evening, and then, without meaning to, I dialed her. Not text, not email, her number. She picked up on the second ring. Grandma? Hi, sweetheart. A pause. Are you nearby? I hesitated. Closer than I planned to be. Do you want to meet? Her voice was careful, like she didn't want to scare me off. I looked out at the trees, the way the wind moved them gently, like someone brushing hair behind an ear. Only if you're sure. I'm sure. She arrived 15 minutes later, wearing jeans and a green jacket, her hair pulled back in a loose knot. She looked like her mother at that age. Emily's same quiet eyes, same way of scanning a place before stepping in. We hugged, lightly, then tighter. We got coffee from a cart near the library and sat on a bench that creaked. I didn't think you'd come, she said. I didn't think you'd want me to. I always wanted to, she said. I just didn't know how to ask. That hit something deep. Not painful, just old. I'm sorry for disappearing, I said. I'm sorry for waiting so long. We sat a while, sipped in silence. Then she said, Are you happy? I thought about it. I'm not finished yet, but I'm getting there. She nodded. You look like someone who knows where she's going. I smiled. Finally. That night, I parked Lark by a quiet trail just outside town. No campground, no lights, just trees, stars, and a girl I loved now within reach. I didn't know what would come next. I didn't need to. Before bed, I wrote, Day 6. The people who find you when you stop searching, keep them. Sarah came by the next morning with 2 muffins and a secondhand thermos of coffee. I stepped out of Lark, wearing my old sweater and thick socks, feeling suddenly like the grandmother people write poems about. She didn't treat me like one. She treated me like someone worth showing up for. We ate on the small, fold-out table just inside the RV, knees nearly touching, the smell of brewed coffee curling between us like a thread being re-stitched. I told my roommate you were parked in the woods, Sarah said, smiling. She thinks you're a spy or something. I like that better than runaway senior, I replied. She laughed, freely, like she used to when she was 10, and I showed her how to burn sugar on creme brulee with a lighter. It struck me how little time we'd actually had together, and how much of it still felt like ours. I never asked, she said. Why now? I didn't answer right away. I poured more coffee, watched it steam. You ever realize, I said slowly, that you've been in a room for so long you stopped noticing it had walls? She tilted her head. I kept making myself smaller, I continued. Softer, quieter. I thought that would make people stay. It didn't. It just made me disappear. Sarah nodded, eyes sharp, listening the way her mother used to, before she stopped calling. I loved your uncle, I said. Still do. In that way you love someone even after they stop deserving it. But I don't owe him what I used to. I don't owe anyone everything. You owe yourself something, she said. Yes. She looked around Lark, her fingers grazing the table edge. This is kind of amazing, you know, what you're doing. It's not brave, I said. It's overdue. No, she said. It's both. We walked later, down a path behind the trail where I'd parked. The leaves hadn't started turning yet, but the wind had that early taste of fall. She told me about her classes, her job shelving books, a professor who called her writing incisive. I like that word, she said. You are that word, I told her. At the end of the trail, she turned to me. Will you stay a few days? I could, I said. Good, she smiled. I want you to meet someone. Someone? A girl, she said, cheeks warming. Her name's Marne. She waited, just a second, to see what I'd do. I only nodded. Tell me about her. And she did. We sat on a log while she described Marnie's drawings, the way she laughed with her whole chest, the playlist she made for Sarah with songs that somehow made sense in the same breath. It wasn't shock I felt, or fear, just pride, quiet and full. Does she treat you right? I asked. Better than I knew I deserved, she said. Then I'll bring the good china. We walked back in silence. That evening, I called my sister in Montana. I hadn't spoken to her since we argued over nothing 2 winters ago. I told her where I was, what I'd done, what I was doing next. She cried. I didn't. Sometimes the apology is just answering the phone. I went to sleep early that night, curled beneath an old quilt I'd almost left behind. Outside, leaves rustled. Somewhere nearby, someone played soft music. Not loud enough to sing along with, just loud enough to feel less alone. Before I turned off the light, I wrote, Day 7. You don't have to go far to come home. Sometimes you just have to stop handing the keys to people who never planned to stay. Meeting Marnie was easier than I expected. She had kind eyes and nervous hands, brought flowers, dahlias, wrapped in brown paper, and apologized for not knowing if I liked them. I told her I did. Even if I hadn't, I would have said yes. We sat outside a small cafe near the campus. The sun was bright, but not sharp. Sarah kept looking between us like she was waiting for one of us to flinch. We didn't. Marnie told me about her art, her part-time job at the bookstore, the way she and Sarah had met in a class neither of them wanted to take. Accidental blessings, she called it. She made Sarah laugh. Not the polite kind, the belly-deep kind that shakes loose something old. I liked her. More than that, I trusted her. Sarah had someone who saw her. Later, I walked with Sarah back to the lot where Lark waited under a thinning tree. We stood there for a minute, both unsure if it was a goodbye. I don't want to keep you from the road, she said. You're not. She looked down. It's weird, knowing you're out there somewhere, that you could be in Oregon next week, or Idaho. You say that like it's a bad thing. No, she said. It's kind of beautiful. I gave her the small box I'd brought out of the RV. Inside, an old necklace of mine, the tiny silver bird Robert once gave me, and a note written in the same hand I used to leave on napkins in her lunchbox. You don't need to follow my path. Just don't be afraid to leave the ones that shrink you. She read it silently, folded the paper, hugged me tighter than I thought her frame allowed. When she left, I didn't cry. I just stood there for a long time, hands in my pockets, heart still warm from something that finally didn't need fixing. That night, I drove west. Just a few hours. No map, no plan. I parked near an old fire road where the trees arched above like cathedral bones and the stars blinked between them like they were listening. I made soup. Played a cassette I'd found at a gas station rack labeled $1, no refunds. It was gospel. Out of tune, full of scratches, but honest. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I danced, alone, barefoot on the cool vinyl floor, hands lifted without shame, hips loose like they still remembered youth. It didn't matter that no one saw me. What mattered was that I did. When I finally sat, breathless and grinning, I pulled out my notebook. Day 8. If you're lucky, you'll remember who you were before they convinced you to forget. And if you're braver than lucky, you'll let her out again. I left the light on that night. Not because I was scared, because I wasn't. A week later, I woke in the mountains to the sound of frost cracking beneath a deer's hooves. The air was sharp, not painful, just honest. It reminded me I still had skin, still had breath, still had the kind of body that could feel. I made coffee on the little stove and drank it, standing outside Lark, watching my breath curl into ribbons. The deer watched me back from a distance, calm but alert, like we understood something about each other. By noon, I'd made it to a valley town whose name I never caught. Just a post office and a co-op grocery, a woman selling pottery off the back of a truck. I bought a mug the color of moss, paid in cash. She handed me change and said, "You look like you've been somewhere." I smiled. "I've been everywhere I wasn't supposed to be." She didn't blink, just nodded. That's the good kind. I drove another hour after that, stopped for gas, ate canned peaches by the pump. No one rushed me. No one asked what I was doing. That was the gift of being older. Invisibility when you want it, and just enough weight when you don't. Back on the road, I thought about Evan. I hadn't heard from him since the last message, the one where he said he didn't recognize me anymore. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. He was right. I wasn't the woman he'd known. I was the one I'd been before I started sacrificing her. At the next town, I found a library. Walked through the quiet halls, let my fingers trace the spines. I borrowed one book, Travels with Charlie, Steinbeck. I'd read it decades ago, but it felt different now, like a conversation I was finally ready to have. In the back of the library was a bulletin board covered in notes, looking for part-time work. Free piano, you move it. Writing group. Sundays, no egos. That one caught my eye. I took a photo. That night, I parked by a river with no name and read the first 20 pages of Steinbeck under a blanket. He talked about motion as salvation, about solitude as restoration. I underlined a passage in pencil. We do not take a trip takes us. I closed the book and stared out at the dark water. Somewhere across it, someone had built a fire. I saw the glow, heard laughter, faint but sincere. I didn't feel alone. I felt like I was part of something I didn't need to own. The next morning, I made pancakes from a mix I'd found in a dusty store. Burned the first one, ate the second with honey and butter. Wrote a postcard to Sarah. Still out here. Still choosing every turn. You were right about Marne. She's a bright one. Hold on to her and to yourself. I don't know when I'll be back or if I ever will in the old way. But I'm not lost. Just further than I've ever been allowed to go. And it suits me. I didn't send it yet. Just kept it in the drawer. Some truths need to steep a little. Later that day, I took out Robert's photo. Not to cry over. Just to check in. I laid it beside a new one I took of myself by the river, laughing with syrup on my chin, wind in my hair. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. He would have loved this version of me. Not because I was wild, but because I was whole. Not because I'd moved on, but because I'd finally come back to the woman he fell in love with. Before the compromises, before the politeness. Before I gave away everything just to be tolerated. I fell asleep early that night, with the book still open on my chest, and the soft rustle of water carrying me somewhere unnamed. Before the light went out, I wrote, Day 9. You don't have to be forgiven for becoming yourself. You just have to stop apologizing for the years you weren't. The last stop wasn't planned, but none of them were, really. I was following the edge of a lake, not looking for anything, just driving the way you do when the road feels like the only place you can think clearly. That's when I saw the sign. Flea Market Saturdays. Old fairgrounds. Rain or shine. It was Sunday, but something made me pull in anyway. There were only a few tables left. The kind run by people who didn't mind being late to pack up. A man sold rusted tools beside a woman with a crate of worn paperbacks. Kids chased each other between rows of tarnished cutlery and mismatched buttons. I walked slow. No purpose. No hunger. Just a strange sense that I needed to witness something here. That's when I saw it. A table near the back, covered in old postcards. Hundreds of them. Sorted by color, not location. Pale blues, browns, sun-faded reds. I picked one up. A photograph of a wide highway, empty, but waiting. No message on the back, no stamp, just blank space. The woman at the table looked at me like she knew something. "Lost or found?" she asked. I blinked. "Excuse me?" "People buy these when they're looking for something," she said, "or when they've just found it." I didn't answer, just smiled. Bought the card. Back in Lark, I sat at the little table and looked at it again. That road, that sky, that strange, quiet invitation. I flipped it over and wrote just one sentence. I am not angry anymore. Then I folded it, slid it into the green box, and closed the latch. That evening, I drove to the edge of a bluff. The sky was clear, and the land below stretched like something unfinished. I made a small dinner, washed the plate, brushed my hair, put on the soft sweater with the hole near the hem, the one Robert always teased me about. Then I called Evan. It rang 5 times before he picked up. His voice was smaller than I remembered. "Mom?" "I won't stay long," I said. "I just want to say one thing." "Okay. I'm not coming back. Not to the life you wanted me to stay inside." "I didn't mean to. I know," I said. "But you did." Silence. "I'm not angry anymore," I continued. "But I'm also not available for who I used to be." More silence. Then, "Are you okay?" "Yes," I said. "Better than I've been in years." A pause. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I hope someday you are," I replied. "Not just for me, for yourself." I didn't wait for his reply. I hung up, gently, like setting down something too heavy to carry any further. Then I stepped outside. The air was cold, but not cruel. The sky was every shade of dusk. I stood on the bluff and let the wind wrap around me like a coat. My hands didn't tremble. My breath didn't catch. I was here, and it was enough. I didn't need applause or forgiveness or to be remembered by anyone who'd tried to erase me. I had my keys. I had my name. I had a road still left to drive. Inside, I opened my journal one last time. No date, no number. Just this. There is no age where you stop deserving to be whole. No silence deep enough to erase the sound of your own voice when it returns to you. They don't have to understand it. You just have to live it. If you're reading this, maybe it's time. Start the engine. Let them wonder where you went.